It is my current goal to beat the game of Pokemon Yellow every single week in a solo challenge using all 151 Pokedex entries within the game. And this week, we're taking a look at Charmeleon. We're back in the starter line for the first time since 2025, and we are, just like last week, looking at the middle stage of the next starter Pokemon. So this is the evolution of Charmander, which is my favorite Pokemon of all time. That was the Pokemon that I started with when the game first came out, day one. That was my guy. So I've had Charmeleon on many teams just because of the fact that when you have Charmander by proxy, eventually you end up with Charmeleon. Now, if you haven't seen the Charmander solo challenge that I did last year, it was the second video I'd ever done for this channel. It was also the second time I'd ever tried a solo challenge. So we have learned a lot since then. And we've learned a lot about just sort of the way that the moves work and everything like that within this game. So I have a lot of confidence that we can for sure obviously be much faster, because even though we're going to basically see the exact same move set and pretty much the exact same pathing, everything like that, because really when you look at it, Charmeleon is basically just a slightly better statted Charmander, right? At least in Generation 1. The main difference between these two Pokemon is just going to be higher stats. And at the end of the day, we are going to run this Pokemon exactly the same, although now we're going to have much more knowledge in terms of just sort of how I should be going through this. So I feel pretty confident that we're going to get a pretty decent time. My best estimate when I first began playing this was about an hour, not directly at an hour. I was thinking it's probably still going to be a little over, just because even though we are a little stronger, some areas are still going to give Charmeleon some struggles, specifically people like Misty, and of course Lorelei is going to be kind of like a 50-50. There's a lot of water there, but then also because of the ice typing, we're going to have kind of like a 50-50 battle there. And the Gyarados for Lance is always a struggle. So, there's going to be little choke points for Charmeleon. But luckily, we are going to have the exact same moveset, which is going to be Body Slam, which is a great utility move. It does a lot of damage. Also has the option to potentially paralyze. And then you also have moves like Dig, which is great because it's going to give us some good type coverage there, especially for the ghost types and the poison types that we're going to want to deal with pretty quickly, just so we don't get poisoned and slowly get chipped away. Or again, with Agatha, she can be a real wall sometimes for some Pokemon. And then, of course, Flamethrower. Like, how could you not have a stab type move? Same type attack bonus if you've never heard that before. And also, Flamethrower is just cool, dude. Like, why would you not take it, right? Aesthetically, always take it. Then, of course, we're also going to have Swords Dance, and Swords Dance is going to be the big move for us. Basically, there's a thing that happens in Generation 1 called the Badge Boost Glitch. Any move that gets boosted through a badge has a feature in this game where when you use something like Swords Dance, every time my attack gets moved up by 2 stages, it's also going to move up like my defense or my speed or my special or all 3 once I get all those badges, which will make it possible to get through the Elite Four. It's just sort of one of those things that I think, especially in Generation 1, for Pokemon that really have some major struggles, like Fire Pokemon, Ground Pokemon, Poison Pokemon, I don't think you get through the game without the Badge Boost Glitch unless you're at maybe level 100 or 80 or 90 or something in there. So it just makes this game somehow a little bit more accessible, actually, and gives you interesting new ways to plan out your attacks and how you go about your business. So that's what we're looking at, and with all of this said and done, we are about to walk out of Viridian Forest and into the Pewter City Gym. There is a small part of me that kind of feels like level 14 for Charmeleon does feel a little overpowered, but I do think that because I'm going to effectively skip some stuff later on that Charmander would have skipped, I kind of like having the extra levels a little bit early on, just because I'm going to lose out on some of the middle ground stuff. And I just think it kind of helps cut through this section pretty quickly. Last time I did one of these videos specifically about Charmander, I was talking about how it took me a little bit as a, 6 or 7-year-old kid to figure out that Ember was not super effective against Brock's Pokemon, because I did basically just that, which is I was pretty strong And then I just kind of went for it. I was like, wow, Ember's great. Turns out, yeah, no, they're strong against me. I just didn't know because they didn't have any moves that were super effective against me. I was just over leveling. But I guess at the end of the day, I didn't even realize it as a small child, but I was preparing myself for the solo challenges. Effectively. Kind of, sort of. Anyway, after getting the hidden rare candy in that one dude's backyard, I go and I fight the rival because we for sure are not ready for Misty. And after we've gotten through his team, we're going to make our way up the Nugget Bridge. And after we do that, I know typically we go immediately to the Cerulean Gym, but as a fire type, we're not ready for that. So we're going to go down to the SS Anne where I'm going to do a little bit of training. I'm not going to fight against every single person here on this boat, but I'm definitely going to go against a bunch of people here on this sort of first landing, and then a little bit of that second landing where the rare candy is and a couple of the key items. I'm not going to bother with the floor that has rest or anything like that. I'm not going to use that move, so no reason to even spend the time kind of tracking through that whole area. And then we're going to go up against the rival here at level 29. We're looking pretty good. Now, the one thing that I think a lot of times it's very easy to kind of get into a rhythm with is just the fact that up next normally would be Surge. However, because we have not gone up against Misty, we cannot use Cut, even though we just picked it up. So I actually never healed during any of that. I just used potions. So then I go into Diglett Tunnel in order to use Dig, and I actually dig my way back to Cerulean, which really saves some time here. And then now we're ready for Cerulean City Gym, and we can kind of just blast right through those trainers. Misty, on the other hand, it could be really tough. I mean, we're level 30 at this point, so we're pretty high up there. Their defense, she does sometimes buff, but considering she just kind of goes for the hurt there with Water Gun, I think Bubble Beam could have potentially one-shot us, especially if it crit, but she doesn't. She goes for Water Gun, and that is a badge which then lets us use Cut to get to Surge. Lieutenant Surge is, I mean, you know, it's the same guy. It's the same dude you see every time. I use Dig once, he's done, thank you for the badge, and then I move on. Now, I took a little bit too much time with part of my pathing here. I go through and I get an extra rare candy that's in the hidden base. I go and I buy just a couple little boosting items before I get the Pokédoll, which I'm going to need here in this area. I don't know how much time I can cut off of that. It took me about 10 minutes to do Rock Tunnel and all of my kind of smaller Celadon items. I do think I could drop some time there because, again, I wanted to be close to an hour. In my head, a great Charmeleon time, at least first iteration, would be like an hour 15, maybe an hour 20. So we're kind of cutting back a little bit here, or losing some time rather, and I don't really love that. Now, we do finally go back to the Celadon Gym because we're going to have to go through there in order to get to Fuchsia and everything like that. The big concern for me here is the fact that I would have loved to have just been at level 42 and have Flamethrower. Not having Flamethrower does make this gym just a little bit slower. Even though Ember is super effective, it's just such a weak move that it does not one-shot any of these guys, even with being, you know, 7 to 10 or potentially even more levels above them. It doesn't matter. Everyone's special is pretty decent here, and even with that same type attack bonus, 60 is just not enough. But it doesn't matter. With taking a few extra hits, and then obviously most of them being poison secondary types, Dig also is very effective, so we get that 4th badge, and we move on to Silph Co, where we now have a Rival 5, and I did forget to pick up Swords Dance before I came to this fight, but I don't think it matters, or at least not for Charmeleon. Being this high of a level and a lot of these Pokemon being both under-evolved or not having some of their strongest moves, like Sandslash not having Earthquake, we're kind of sitting fine with just sort of using some sort of chipping moves against him. Kadabra hasn't evolved, so Rival 5 does go down fairly easily, although I could see Swords Dance just making that even simpler, but not necessary, at least not for Charmeleon. It's also not necessary for the Rocket Trio. Of course, they are as the same thing as Surge, it's just garbage, you know? It's nice that it reflects the Pokemon anime, and it's cool that they put them in the game, but all they really do is just sort of slow me down in terms of having like one extra fight. By the way, while I'm defeating Giovanni here pretty handily, I just want to point out, I looked to the left here for just a brief moment and caught that original watercolor artwork of Charmeleon. And truly, let me tell you, there has never been a cooler iteration of Charmeleon. Like, I think he's fine in all the games. He's a cool design, maybe at least design-wise one of my favorite middle stages. But again, I think it's probably just my bias towards Charmander being my favorite. But this artwork is so sick. Like, the action shot of him is so cool. And it sort of is how I feel against most of the trainers here. The fact that we're now, granted, we're a little slow. We're at about an hour and we're just now starting Koga's gym. But the way that he handles the Pokemon around him currently so far has me feeling like that artwork on the left. I feel like that's just what I look like in action. Like, yeah, go Charmeleon, go. Now against Koga, I probably didn't need to really set up. I kind of tested the waters. I wasn't really sure what he was going to use against me since I was fire type. He just was going for tackle, so it gave me plenty of opportunity to set up. And then Flamethrower takes care of all 4 of these bug Pokemon. I mean, they're poison types, yeah, but yeah, he kind of changes it up a little bit in this generation, and it's sometimes a curse, sometimes a blessing. It can really kind of go either way. Now that we have that badge, we can move on to Sabrina's gym, and I don't even attempt to set up. I actually think that by being level 50 at the same level as these guys, and our special's not too bad, I feel pretty good about it. And yeah, we get through that team pretty easily. Up next is Blaine. We are definitely speeding through this sort of section. I'm definitely picking up a little bit of time. There's a little bit of training that I probably could have done, but again, I'm really trying to get to an hour 15. That would make me feel great. Hour 20, I would own now. Confusion. The confusion status is bad. It's really rough, especially once you start boosting your moves. I feel like the second that you get confused and you've boosted any stat, it's game over. I don't think that you I think rather that you rarely don't hurt yourself in confusion. So seeing the Confuse Ray hit is pretty scary at times. And we do get our very first reset against Blaine of all people, someone that I think with just a couple, setups, we can obviously do exactly what we just did, which is dig our way to success. And now we have 7 badges, which means we backtrack to Viridian. And I do a little bit of training in this gym as well, just because I definitely think I'm going to need it against someone who's going to be super effective against me. And I get as close to a fresh level up before I take him on. I do level up in the middle of a fight against a trainer in there. So I do have a little bit of extra XP, but it shouldn't be a problem. And now that I've set up 3 times and I'm now +6 to my attack and all my other stats are boosted, though not necessarily to crazy extents, but 184 is at least better, and my speed's pretty good. So now Dig is doing quite a lot of damage, and luckily in Generation 1, Earthquake cannot hit while I'm digging, so I don't die to that, and we take them on easy peasy lemon squeezy. Thank you very much, Giovanni. That was actually pretty solid. I really appreciated how quick and easy that one was. Then we finally have our last version of our rival before he becomes the champion. Now, this is one of those classic fights that is very 50-50 depending on the Pokemon. This is going to be very similar to the Silph fight, at least for Charmeleon, in terms of the fact that like the move pools for these Pokemon, or rather their learn sets at this point, are not really great. Most of them don't have anything that's all that solid against me, and a lot of them are under evolved. So like Execute is not a problem really at all. Kadabra especially is not a problem. And the fact that Sandslash still doesn't have Earthquake does make it pretty easy. So getting the setup makes it very quick and painless to go through this team, especially, Cloyster, who's probably currently in this particular fight poses the most threat, and he's one shot by Flamethrower. So therefore, by the time you get to Jolteon, it shouldn't be all that difficult. One dig takes him out. And yeah, we're looking pretty solid actually at this point. Although we are at an hour 10. And by the time I get out and do a little bit of training, I am already at an hour 15. It's looking dangerous in terms of getting to an hour 20. At this point, I have to beat every single person flawlessly no resets, all under a minute. And I don't know if that's possible, especially because I'm gonna have to sit here for a few moments and I'm gonna have to do a bunch of rare candies. It's not looking too solid. By the time I finish up using 8 of them, we're almost at 117. So yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, again, we're not speedrunning just yet, but I feel, I don't know, just a little slow in some sections, and that's a little frustrating because I do feel like I actually could have done Charmeleon faster than Ivysaur. I actually really felt confident in that, even though I think Ivysaur is a little bit better equipped for most fights outside of Agatha. I think Agatha is really the only major trouble for Ivysaur. Charmeleon, just, I guess I was just a little slow. Maybe my pathing was a little bit off. I don't really know. I'm gonna have to kind of go back and reevaluate a little bit, but either way, this should be, like I mentioned at the beginning of the game, this is a fight that could go either way. It gets really close with that Hydro Pump, but luckily, because of the badge boost glitch, my special is just high enough that I outlive that Hydro Pump. And so I survive with no resets, and we move on to Bruno. And something crazy is about to happen, which is I make a mistake that I don't believe I've ever made, which is that I bothered to set up here, especially when I'm so close to leveling up. It kind of doesn't matter. What I really should just be doing is hitting and getting out of there, because I've set myself up for failure here. It does not one-shot Machamp, and therefore Bruno, I'm pretty certain for the first time ever, not counting someone like Weedle, gets the knockout. I get a reset to Bruno. That is pretty brutal. Does not feel very good. And so today I am going to give him his kudos. A lot of it is about me misplaying. It is me throwing that fight, but you know, again, credit where credit is due. I do take a reset. I have to give it to him. So congratulations, Bruno. You have bested me today. I will give you some sort of proper music instead of making you a joke. Then, after defeating Bruno, we go on to Agatha, who really should not be too bad for Charmeleon. There is a little bit of a misplay in here as well, just because at some points you are moving so quickly in this game at 4 times speed that it can be a little easy to sometimes miss something. Like right there, I thought I beat Golbat and that it passed out. I was not looking at the right-hand side of the screen. So when I was just going through Dig, because in my head, okay, Dig will take out the last 3 Pokemon, she sends out Golbat, and I use Dig on that. So that's a wasted turn. Luckily, I don't get hit by anything too crazy there. So we still make it through, but just goes to show that sometimes going at breakneck speed, you can kind of make a few misclicks, a few misplays. And it's also one of the things where you also have to make sure that you tell people, hey, here's what was going on, because I know immediately I'm going to get a comment going, why did you use Dig against Golbat? Well, it wasn't on purpose, my guy. Oops. Well, Charmeleon's cool, but still garbage against Golbat when you're using Dig. Okay, yeah, man, sure. Anyway, Lance does get a tricky reset. It's not necessarily because of Gyarados, but it kind of is, right? Gyarados is really the reason. Okay, well, that one for sure is all Gyarados. But in that first one, Gyarados hits me for enough damage that when I try to do just a little bit of anything against the Aerodactyl without being fully set, unfortunately, it does get enough damage off on me. Aerodactyl is pretty strong and pretty fast, so it can be quite problematic in this area for most Pokemon. Charmeleon, I kind of feel like, is a little bit past the 50-50 range. I mean, you know, it's got some moves in there. I mean, like the Hyper Beam can be pretty damaging, but it's not using Rock Slide or anything like that, so it really shouldn't be that dangerous. Now, Dragonite for sure feels like potentially the most dangerous outside of Gyarados, but once you're set up pretty sweetly in that way, Body Slam can actually one-shot it, and so that feels pretty good. Now, 4 resets in an hour 22, just about 2.5 minutes past where I really was aiming for. So I didn't necessarily feel defeated, but I do remember looking up at the clock and being like, oh gosh, all right, I gotta look at this again and try to really figure out, oh boy, yep. And that is another reason why you really want to have a bit of a buffer going into the rival fight, because now kind of like Lance, he is starting off strong with a Pokemon that can really do some major damage to you. And so I only do one setup here, and I get the kill. This is one of those moments where things can kind of go either way. With Exeggutor, he doesn't have anything that can really do too much damage to me, although if he had set up any kind of like Leech Seed, I would have had the chip. And speaking of chip, Cloyster gets a Clamp off. Clamp, of all moves to kill me. I mean, granted, yes, it is a water type move, it makes sense, but not even like, hey, use Bubble Beam, use Surf, use Hydro Pump. Clamp. You know, the water version of Bind. Well, listen, I mean, technically it's super effective, even though it's mostly chip damage. Yeah, man, I get it. It could probably have something other than Spike Cannon, but I get that that's kind of its only kind of special move. Not special, like special attack, but yeah, you get it. Anyway, now we have 7 resets. I do still feel pretty good about this. I feel like one setup, especially with the Kinesis missing, Alakazam, kind of a dangerous spot to do it. Exeggutor could have been the right spot to do it. But now that I'm only set up twice, I do think I've got enough stat boost to actually just sort of go through. I don't think I always need to set up 3 times. 2 times is actually perfect. I think 1 was not enough, 3 would be too many, and I was correct, because look at that. We cruise through the ending of the line there, and we do come in at under 125. So while it's a little bit slower than I was hoping for, I do see some areas where there's some room for improvement, and there's going to have to be some sort of, you know, kind of creative thinking, I think, on this Pokemon. I have no idea when I'm going to finally start attempting speedruns. I do think I want to do all 151 solo challenges first before I start doing that, but you never know. We'll see. We'll see what 2026 has in store for us. I already know other plans, and if you're interested in those and you've made it this far and you're not already subscribed, please consider hitting that button. I'm trying to make it to 500, and we're getting closer every day. We're doing pretty good. And every time you subscribe, every time you share, every time you like, especially every time you comment, it really helps out small creators like myself, especially those of us like me who are trying to make content creation a full-time job. Because working a dead-end 9-to-5 kills me a little bit. So thank you so much for your support. Anyway, that'll do it for this one. As always, be kind to yourself, be excellent to one another, and I will see you next week for another solo challenge in Pokemon Yellow.